Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and highly counterintuitive philosophy from an author known as Deformed Buddha. This is one of those texts that completely flips everything we know about charity, kindness, and human intervention totally upside down. The core premise: do not offer help unless asked for. Now, I know, that might sound incredibly harsh at first glance, but the structured logic behind this argument is just absolutely captivating, so let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, the source hits us with this shocking hook. A massive 90% of voluntary efforts to help others are not just unnecessary, they're actively harmful. Think about that for a second. The author wants us to really reflect on how much of our preventative worrying, like giving those heartfelt, unsolicited warnings to our kids or just agonizing over someone else's life choices, actually ends up being utilized. And the answer is, well, barely any. 90% of the time, jumping in to help someone who hasn't explicitly asked for it is just meddling. It's a total waste of time and energy, and it actually ends up hurting both the giver and the receiver.
So let's explore why that is in Part 1, Hidden Debts and Disrupted Plans.
To really see this in action, imagine a married couple. They live on a tight budget, sure, but they're content, peaceful, and happy. Then, a wealthy friend looks at their lifestyle and decides, unprompted, to voluntarily lend them 30,000 yuan just to teach them how to do business. Remember, this wasn't asked for. It was literally just offered out of pity. Well, the result? The couple never experienced another peaceful day. The business completely failed. The 30,000 yuan was basically lost. The husband actually turned to a life of crime, and the wife disappeared after a divorce. By forcing this unsolicited financial help onto them, that friend unknowingly destroyed their peaceful existence entirely.
And this dynamic builds into even more dire scenarios, like in the case of a medical emergency. So picture a struggling family of 6. One day, their 75-year-old elder falls unconscious for 2 days and honestly seems beyond help. But out of nowhere, a well-meaning relative steps in, voluntarily lends them 10,000 yuan, and calls an ambulance to rush the elder to the hospital. Now, yes, the elder survives, but is left completely paralyzed. That 10,000 yuan isn't nearly enough to cover the ongoing bills, so this struggling family is forced to borrow another 5,000. By intervening without ever being asked, this Good Samaritan saddled a desperate family with crippling, permanent debt and the permanent care of a paralyzed dependent. Unsolicited help forcibly imposes a debt that someone else has to repay. If not in this life, then definitely the next.
And this hidden danger even extends to everyday, seemingly harmless stuff, like simple gift giving. The author estimates that 90% of gifts are just things the recipient doesn't urgently need or even want to use. Conventionally, we just think, hey, it's a free gift, what's the harm, right? But the recipient is actually trapped. If they refuse it, they look ungrateful. But if they accept it, boom, a hidden ledger is created. Both parties know exactly the value of that item, so eventually, when the time comes, that recipient is obligated to return the favor. It essentially forces them to convert that initially useless gift into real, hard-earned money to buy something in return. It's not really a gift at all. It's just an unasked-for financial obligation.
And the disruption goes way beyond just money. It can literally derail entire life paths. Take a look at these well-meaning actions compared to their disastrous outcomes. In one case, a father locked his rebellious son in a woodshed, trying to save him from trouble. A kind-hearted neighbor intervened, let the boy out, and because of that, the boy got involved in a crime and actually went to prison. Or, here's another one. A beautiful young girl from the country is working in a restaurant. She's perfectly positioned to learn the business and maybe open her own place someday. But a well-meaning person thinks restaurant work is beneath her and gets her a comfortable office job instead. What happens to her future now? Her entire path to independence and entrepreneurship was completely severed, all by someone else's good intentions.
Which leads us right into Part 2. Laziness, vanity, and deep resentment. Think about the difference between animals in a zoo and animals in the wild. If zoo animals are entirely used to being fed by humans every single day, what are their actual chances of survival in the wild? Barely any, right? When you proactively help someone who didn't ask for it, you risk making them entirely dependent on you. In a moment of crisis, a person might have really exerted themselves, fought through the adversity, and discovered their own great hidden potential. But the second you swoop in to rescue them, that potential is permanently suppressed. They're robbed of their own strength and might forever view themselves as helpless.
But here's the kicker. The person receiving the help isn't the only one who gets psychologically damaged. The giver falls into a vicious trap of their own making too. Let's walk through this cycle really quickly. Step 1. You voluntarily help someone out of the goodness of your heart. Step 2. Time passes, circumstances change, and you fall into your own hardship. Step 3. You meticulously remember every single person you've ever helped, and you fully expect them to proactively come to your rescue. Step 4. When they don't step up voluntarily, you are consumed by bitter resentment. You think to yourself, what ungrateful people. They have absolutely no conscience. By offering unasked for help, you are literally planting the seeds of your own future resentment. You're doing it to yourself.
Let's zoom out a bit for part 3, defying the natural order.
To really understand this on a universal scale, we have to look at the concept of the Tao, the natural order governing all existence. It's the immutable law of birth, growth, destruction, arising, and declining. This philosophy posits that everything happens for a reason, entirely driven by cause and effect. Sometimes, a person's suffering has a cosmic purpose. It might be there to teach them a vital truth or to allow them to repay a karmic debt. So, if a person has an acute illness that's meant to last exactly 3 days to teach them a lesson, and you jump in uninvited to cure them, you might accidentally turn it into a chronic illness that lasts 30 years. You are blindly interfering with a massive natural process that you just don't understand.
To see this philosophy taken to its absolute ultimate extreme, consider this stark historical analogy. It's the story of a British soldier during World War I who reportedly spared the life of a wounded enemy soldier on the battlefield. Now, that man turned out to be Adolf Hitler. In the moment, obviously, it was an act of mercy, a good deed. But in the grand scheme of history and morality, that well-intentioned act of unsolicited help resulted in catastrophic evil. It is a highly provocative reminder that without understanding the grand design, our good deeds can easily become the exact opposite.
Now, you might be wondering, is it always bad? That brings us to part 4, exceptions to the rule. While the author strongly warns against offering unsolicited help, they are surprisingly encouraging about asking for it yourself. There's this ancient saying, asking for help is harder than climbing to the sky. And it's true, we all have our pride and our vanity. But when you hit a truly impassable mountain and you literally cannot solve a problem alone, you have to be brave enough to seek help. This is how we come to understand life. There's just one absolutely vital condition attached here. If you receive a single drop of water in help, you must intend to repay it with a gushing spring. Manage yourself as much as possible, believe in your own potential, but ask when you truly have to and repay it generously.
And there is one ultimate exception to this entire philosophy: life and death friends. Because, all rules have exceptions. When you're dealing with a bond so deep that you would gladly sacrifice your own life for that person, the conventional rules of the world just no longer apply. The author beautifully describes this as jumping out of the 3 realms and not within the 5 elements. In these incredibly rare, profound bonds, all those transactional worries of debt, resentment, and the strict rules of do not offer help unless asked become completely irrelevant.
But for literally everyone else outside of those rare life and death bonds, the author leaves us with a final, pretty jarring warning. When someone comes forward with excessive flattery or says, hey, I'm doing this for your own good, you need to raise your guard immediately. The radical conclusion here, when someone volunteers to help you, you should think, oh, what bad luck. It is a really profound call to reevaluate the true nature of charity and all those hidden strings attached to unearned favors.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've explored how unsolicited help can create crushing debt, strip individuals of their true potential, breed deep resentment, and even defy the natural order of life itself. It's a framework that really forces us to question our deepest, most automatic instincts about kindness. So the question remains, having seen this structured breakdown of deformed Buddhist philosophy, will you ever look at a helping hand the same way again? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.